Now, friends, I am going to discuss with you the fourth number act, and that is Minimum Wages Act. It was established in 1948. This act has been amended in its local application by many states, means different states they have formed their different rules for giving minimum wages to the workers. The main objective is here to prevent the exploitation of workers or employees and get them at least minimum wages. That is the main intention that is discussed in this Minimum Wages Act. Now we will discuss about important aspects of this act. This act lays down for the fixation of any kind of wages. It contains here especially a minimum time rate of wages, a minimum piece rate, a guaranteed time rate, and overtime rate for different occupations, different classes of work, for adults, for children. Different kinds of here rules have been laid down. The minimum wage may consist of basic rate of wages and cost of living allowances. The cost of living allowance shall be computed by competent authorities such as Director and Labour Bureau. The wages shall be paid in cash. This act empowers the appropriate government to fix number of working hours in a day, weekly holiday, and payment of overtime wages. The employer is required to maintain the registers and office records in a proper manner, so accordingly the wages can be given there as per their calculation of hours and calculation of days. The inspectors may be appointed to hear and decide the claims arising due to the payments of less than the minimum wages. In order to handle the cases regarding any kind of minimum wages, if it is not given, offered to any worker, then such type of cases can be handled by the inspectors. The penalties, that is punishment, shall be imposed for violating the provisions of this act. Now, fixation and revision of minimum wages. Appropriate government shall fix the minimum rates of wages for persons employed. Now, this government contain here state government. The appropriate government shall review at interval not exceeding 5 years the minimum rates of wages so fixed and revise the minimum rates. Means time to time this competent government or authority shall take the review whether that minimum wages are given to the people, and obviously that cannot be done within the period of 5 years. In fixing or revising rates of wages, the different minimum rates of wages be fixed for different scheduled employment, different classes of work for adults, children, apprentices. So different kinds of wages have been here again fixed. The minimum rates of wages may be fixed either by hour, by day, by month, or by other longer wage period as may be prescribed. For fixing or revising minimum rates of wages, the appropriate government shall either appoint committees or subcommittees and or publish its proposal for the information of persons likely to be affected and consider all representations received from those persons. The appropriate government shall appoint an advisory board for coordinating the work of committees and subcommittees and advising it as regards fixing and revising minimum wage rates. Now, another condition which is also discussed in this act regarding payment of minimum wages. Minimum wages, as I told you, it should be payable in cash. Compulsory, it should be given in cash. An employer shall not pay less than the minimum wage rate fixed by the respected state government. The government may fix number of working hours in a day. It also provide a day for rest in every period of 7 days compulsory, and provide payment for work on day of rest at the rate not less than the overtime. So when any employee is having his rest period, just like we are having Sunday, then on that day also payment is given to that worker, and that kind of provision is also made under this Minimum Wages Act. This provision shall apply to employees engaged or urgent work, preparatory or any complementary work, employees whose employment is essentially intermittent, etc. If an employee does or more classes of work, each having a different minimum wages rate, he shall get payment in respect of time spent in each class or work. Then maintenance records. Every employer shall maintain registers and other records giving details of employees, nature of work that they performed, wages paid to them and receipts given by them, etc. in such a form as may be prescribed. So, the maintenance record is also maintained in every industry. Now, what are the powers of inspector and what is the role of inspector, that is also made clear in this Minimum Wages Act. Appropriate government may appoint inspectors for the purpose of this act so that inspector can take care about the activities that are conducted under this act. The inspector shall have the following powers. The inspector can enter at all time, maybe at any reasonable hours, any premises for examining register, records or any kind of documents regarding the wages if it is given to employees or not. Even inspector can examine any person, whether the same person's name, if the same person is going to work in that industry. Even the inspector can seize relevant records in respect of any offense. If any offense has been happened in that industry, then inspector has a right to call upon all that documents, check the records. Then claims. Next is your claims. An employee, an official of registered trade union on behalf of the employee or an inspector can apply to the authority appointed by appropriate government to hear and decide the claims. Arising out of payment of less than minimum wage rate, the claims can be related to that. If someone is getting the payment and if it is minimum, means less than minimum wages that are designed or prescribed in this particular act. In respect of wages at the overtime rate, if any claim regarding overtime, then in respect of payment of remuneration for days of rest, means on the day of holiday, if any kind of payment is not made or if it is not done, then regarding any kind of claim can be here handled. For that, application for claim should be presented within 6 months from the date on which the claimed amount becomes payable. So within 6 months, the person is supposed to write an application for demanding the claim for the above conditions. After receiving the application, the authority shall hear both the employee and employer. When the inspector may receive this application, then that authority, whoever it will be, they will, before handling this case, they can listen to employee and employer sides, and after that they will give the appropriate justice. If employee's stand is found correct, claims arising out of payment of less than minimum wages, the employee shall get extra amount plus a compensation not exceeding 10 times the amount of such excess. In cases other than that of minimum wages, employee shall get the amount due towards him plus a compensation not more than ₹10. If employee's application is found to be malicious, means having some conspiracy that is made into this application, then he may be penalized to pay to the employer an amount rupees up to 50. Then some of the offences and penalties are also discussed under this act. An employer who contravenes any provision of the act be punishable with a fine extending up to ₹500 and an imprisonment for a term up to 6 months or both. Second penalty for second offence, an employer charged with an offence under this act file a complaint against the actual offender, and if he succeeds in providing the offence by the other person, then the actual offender shall be liable to the punishment. Arising out of payment less than minimum wage rate in respect of wages at the overtime, all these things are already discussed before. Next. Thank you. So all that provisions have been made available in this Minimum Wages Act. Thank you.